At 28, you walked into Lehman Brothers with the sharp hunger of a man who had everything to prove. Your path there wasn't a straight line. Goldman Sachs had shown you the door after the final round of interviews, and while Morgan Stanley dangled a legitimate offer, you walked away from it. You chose Lehman because their fixed-income desk was known as the most feral predator in the financial ecosystem, and you were desperate to hunt. You wanted an environment that mirrored your own intensity, and in that regard, you were absolutely right. You proved to be a natural, an elite operator who truly excelled in the high-stakes theater of global finance. 6 years of intentional, calculated effort have passed since that first morning. Now 34, you sit as a vice president of fixed income, overseeing a desk that churns through $400 million every single day. The rewards for this level of precision are substantial. A $250,000 base salary augmented by a $380,000 bonus, bringing your total take-home to a clinical $630,000. You spent over half a decade carefully constructing a life in Greenwich, securing a mortgage that mirrors your annual pay, and watching your daughter head off to her first days of kindergarten. Following the firm's persistent encouragement, you funneled your entire retirement into Lehman stock, watching it climb for 10 years as if it were a permanent ladder to the stars. Your equity in the firm now sits at a substantial $340,000, a figure that currently feels like a solid foundation but will soon become a haunting measurement of loss. You are sitting in your Greenwich kitchen on the evening of Sunday, September 14, 2008. The house is a sanctuary of domestic silence. The television is dark, your wife is lost in a book on the couch, and your daughter is tucked away in sleep upstairs. At 9 p.m., you open your Bloomberg terminal to scan the horizon. The headlines are grim, but bad news on a Sunday has become as rhythmic and expected as the tide. For 2 years, the vultures have circled with the same exhausted refrains. You have heard it all. The mortgage book is a toxic disaster, the firm is drowning in leverage, and now the whispers claim Barclays has abandoned the deal while the Federal Reserve and the government stand idly by. Yet, you remain skeptical of this impending doom. To you, these apocalyptic forecasts are like a seasonal storm that rattles the windows but never breaks the glass. You survived Bear Stearns and the credit crunch. You have seen the death of Lehman predicted 9 times before, and the profits were wrong every single time. After closing the terminal, you set your alarm for 5:30 a.m., preparing for what you assume will be a completely normal Monday. Your calendar is already locked in with a 7 a.m. desk meeting, a 9 a.m. client call, and a 2 p.m. presentation that 3 analysts have spent their entire week perfecting. The night before, you drifted into sleep in a mere 12 minutes, oblivious to the fact that you had just closed the final chapter of your professional normalcy. It is a terrifying reality you have yet to grasp. At 6:47 a.m. on Monday, September 15, 2008, the world fractures through the glow of your phone screen. Lehman Brothers Holdings Incorporated has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It is a collapse of staggering proportions, the largest in American history, burdened by $613 billion in debt. You sit on the edge of your bed in the heavy silence of a dark room, reading the headline 3 times as if repetition could alter the math. Your wife remains asleep, unaware that the domestic stability downstairs, the refrigerator covered in your daughter's crayon drawings, is now precarious. Just last Tuesday, you helped her sketch those oversized figures, labeling the tall one as Daddy, before she carefully added a tie. Dressing in a daze, you begin a commute that has become a physiological reflex over the last 6 years. You drive to the station and board the 704 to Grand Central, your body navigating the route like a ghost following a familiar haunting. The train car is a gallery of shock. 6 other commuters sit in frozen silence, their faces illuminated by the same digital wreckage. Upon arrival, you begin the 22-minute walk toward 745 7th Avenue, moving with the mechanical gait of a man whose destination has vanished while he was en route. You have navigated this concrete maze more than 1,000 times, each turn and curb etched into your muscle memory. At 51st Street, you pause at the familiar coffee cart where the vendor already knows your rhythm. You hand over $4 for a large black coffee, no sugar, clutching the warmth as you pace the final 2 blocks. But the destination has transformed into a crime scene. A chaotic, alien crowd swarms 745 7th Avenue, punctuated by security guards acting as human deadbolts and television cameras already perched across the street like vultures. You spot a colleague from your floor standing adrift on the pavement, her entire professional existence reduced to a single potted plant clutched in her arms. No words pass between you. The silence is a scream of shared understanding. By the afternoon of that catastrophic Monday, the doors finally yield. You are permitted re-entry into the glass tower, though not for business. Barclays requires a cold inventory of remaining assets. Sitting at your desk for the final time, you realize the trading floor has been hollowed out. It is no longer a hub of commerce, but a morgue for the ambitions of 25,000 employees. Some of your colleagues stare blankly at darkened monitors, while others pack boxes with the frantic precision of soldiers cleaning rifles to avoid contemplating the massacre. You are not a unique victim in this building. You are merely one of a multitude who tethered their existence to a ghost. A clinical audit of your life reveals the damage. You open your savings, brokerage, and retirement accounts, stacking the remaining numbers against a $4,100 monthly mortgage in Greenwich. You had engineered your entire lifestyle around the gravity of a massive annual bonus, but that math has failed. Your bonus for this year is zero, and next year is a non-entity because the firm itself has evaporated. In the wake of this institutional suicide, there is only a bankruptcy trustee and a line of hungry creditors. You are left to realize that every peer on this floor shared your blind faith, sizing their world around a financial figure that no longer exists. We spent years convinced that Lehman Brothers was the peer of Goldman Sachs, an institution so massive it had become a permanent fixture of the firmament. The internal gospel was simple: we were too big to fail and destined to be fine. But the cold reality is that the firm is anything but fine. As you pack a cardboard box with 17 photographs and a coffee mug your daughter painted in her ceramics class, marked with a lopsided star and Dad in shaky letters, the facade finally crumbles. You wrap that mug in a copy of the Financial Times from last Thursday, barely noticing the grim irony of a headline touting Lehman's survival strategy. You simply need the padding. The news is now just scrap paper. Passing the media gauntlet outside the lobby, you refuse to give the cameras the satisfaction of a glance. The arithmetic of your new reality is stubborn and unchanging, yet you find yourself obsessively running the numbers regardless. 6 days after the bankruptcy, Barclays swept in to acquire Lehman's North American operations, igniting a flicker of desperate hope. Calls started going out to former colleagues, offering them a seat in the new regime, same desks, but with humbled titles and restructured paychecks. You spent the first day checking your phone 40 times, then 20 the next, until the silence eventually solidified into a definitive rejection by the 5th day. Your 5-year-old daughter watches you, asking when you will return to the office. You tell her soon with a projection of absolute certainty, knowing that young children are hardwired to trust the hollow confidence of adults. Driven by the phantom itch of a defunct routine, you find yourself cruising past 745 7th Avenue on a Thursday. The building remains a mocking monument to business as usual. The glass is just as polished and the coffee cart guy is still stationed on the corner. He waves as you pass, completely unaware that your world has ended, because the street is indifferent to the ghosts it creates. You wave back, but you keep driving, vowing never to haunt that block again. At home, your wife remains silent about the dwindling accounts, graciously waiting for you to find a moment that feels less like an open wound to finally discuss the money. That moment of clarity keeps not arriving. Instead, you find yourself updating your resume for the first time in 6 years, spending 40 agonizing minutes staring at a page that looks more like a museum exhibit than a professional profile. It serves as an archaeological snapshot of a career that flatlined on a Monday morning in September. A high-performing executive at a firm that has ceased to exist, possessing a skill set for which the current market has absolutely no appetite. You send this document to 3 headhunters. 2 reply with the same hollow script. Everyone knows the market is currently a block of ice. They promise to keep your details on file. A phrase that, after being heard twice in 1 week, triggers a visceral cocktail of rage and bone-deep exhaustion. By Wednesday, the new vendor has already forgotten your order. You correct him once, then twice, before finally surrendering to the anonymity of your new life. You eventually start ordering something entirely different, a small admission that the person who drank that specific coffee belonged to a world that has been permanently decommissioned. Your new office on the 14th floor offers a northern exposure that, on a clear afternoon, reveals the jagged skyline of Midtown. From this distance, you can see the exact block where 745 7th Avenue stands. You never look for it on purpose, but your eyes find it with the magnetic pull of a previous trauma. The culture at this new firm is one of practiced professional silence. Several of your coworkers are fellow Lehman survivors, yet an unspoken industry etiquette prevents anyone from mentioning the fall. There is a collective understanding that bankruptcy was a predator that could have cornered anyone in that era. While you appreciate this quiet pact, it often feels as though you are all walking around a massive, unacknowledged ghost. This tension follows you into your social life. At dinner parties, when guests inevitably ask where you were before, the mention of Lehman triggers a very specific facial reaction, a look of mild discomfort from those who are frantically searching for something polite to say. They usually fill the mounting silence with generic platitudes about the global crisis that they gleaned from a news cycle you lived through in person. You agree with their assessment simply to end the exchange, shifting the topic with a single practice sentence. You have executed this conversational pivot at 11 different dinner parties over the last 6 months. It is a razor-sharp verbal exit strategy. It is also the most isolated phrase in your vocabulary. At home, your 5-year-old daughter produced a fresh crayon drawing last week. She sketched those familiar stick figures again, labeling the largest one Daddy. You immediately noticed that this version of you lacks a tie, yet you said nothing. You simply pinned it to the refrigerator beside the old one. Side by side, they serve as a 2-part exhibit of a life's sudden pivot, a before and an after. While you assume she just forgot the accessory, you find yourself examining those 2 images every morning before starting your new commute. This is the central puzzle of that September morning. When 25,000 people marched out of those glass doors with their boxes, they scattered into the wind. Some answered the call from Barclays, while others, like you, rebuilt their foundations at regional firms. Many vanished from finance altogether to become teachers or consultants. You recently read 2 interviews with a former colleague who reinvented himself as a chef, claiming it was the smartest move of his life. You are not entirely convinced of his happiness, but you aren't ready to dismiss it either. None of that devotion mattered. You didn't fall because of a personal error. You were swallowed by a systemic crater that opened beneath you while you were performing at your peak. Now, sitting on the 14th floor and looking north toward a neighborhood you no longer walk, you are left with a question that offers no sanctuary. If a person constructs their entire identity on the foundation of an institution that can vanish in a single night, they are forced to wonder what, if anything, they actually built. There is no tidy answer to be found for you or the 25,000 others who carried their lives out in cardboard boxes. That silence remains the final, enduring legacy of that Monday on 7th Avenue.